I am calling to order the meeting of the City of Salem Budget Committee for October 22nd, 2025. Can the recorder please call the roll?
Member Belicheks.
Present.
Member Nishioka.
Here.
Member Brown.
Present.
Member Manville.
Here.
Member Vieira Brandel.
Here.
Member Tigan.
Present.
Member Matthews.
Here.
Member Gwen.
Here.
Member Julie Hoy.
Here.
Member Fuller.
Here.
Member Vang.
Here.
Member Nordyke.
Here.
Member Varney.
Here.
Member Dixon.
Present.
Member Murray is absent. Member Geyer.
Here.
Vice Chair Cohen.
Here.
Chair Allen.
Here. Thank you very much. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's silence some phones real quick.
I was thinking that maybe there'd be standing room only tonight, but not quite the case. But we will begin tonight with public comment. For members of the public who have signed to testify, please provide your name and neighborhood and ward. You'll have 3 minutes to testify. There will be a green light. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The timer will be displayed on the screen at the front of the room. Press the button on the microphone at the podium before speaking. The green light means the mic is on. And again, you'll have 3 minutes. And we have one person signed up this evening, and I believe it's Opal Belicheks from Ward 1.
Hello everyone, my name is Opal Belicheks and I live in Ward 1. In my human geography class at North Salem High School, I learned what a food desert is, and I believe we live in one. A food desert is a place with low-income housing that has no easily accessible supermarkets. By easily accessible, I mean there are no stores within walking distance of my area. Sure, there are corner stores and gas stations, but oftentimes food in those types of stores are too expensive and only have unhealthy options. No parent should have to feed their kid junk food from a corner store because that's all they can afford. There should be easily accessible grocery stores with healthy and affordable options. I've noticed that we are in a food desert because the majority of students in my school are low income, and because of this food desert we live in, they often only get one meal a day from free school lunches. While having free school lunches is great, it becomes an issue when there are long breaks. I believe having a cheap and easily accessible store near us will help many students not have to go home and worry about whether there will be food on their dinner plate tonight. Especially with the recent closing of grocery outlet downtown, Safeway is now the only option. Safeway is under a lot of stress now to support all of the downtown community. Even though Safeway is technically downtown, it is still a significant walk away from most housing in the area. Safeway is also by the train tracks, which can be dangerous to cross, especially for young and/or disabled people. The big problem I have seen is that there are no grocery stores from Safeway to the South Salem Ross. That is 3 miles between those stores. Do you know how many people live in that 3-mile-long food desert? You can just imagine how many children there are who have to worry about food. I would like the Salem City Council to think about the ways they can help my neighborhood in this food desert crisis. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Opal. Appreciate that. So next is the approval of the May 28, 2025 Budget Committee meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the May 28, 2025 Budget Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
I have a motion from Vice Chair Cohen and a second from Member Vang. Is there any discussion?
It was Member Gwen. It was Member Gwen.
It was Member Gwen. I heard it over here. I thought, I'm sorry. There's way too much pressure. So let the record reflect that that is Member Gwen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. The motion passes unanimously. Now, there are no action items this evening. We do have information, there are no action items, information items, or public hearings this evening. Everything we are going to be dealing with this evening is under special order of business, and we're going to start this evening with a message from our city manager.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. I just have to kind of make sure that I notify the committee that I have a family commitment that I need to be at. So the plan is I'll be kicking off the presentation and then step away, and the Chief Strategy Officer, Courtney Knox-Bush, will be in my seat for the rest of the evening, and I apologize for the inconvenience. So before the CFO, Eggleston, presents his presentation, I do want to take a minute to thank this budget committee, and you have done good work guiding our city through challenging financial decisions. And your questions, engagement, and your discussions during that process really helped shape the levy and the budget process. So the other piece that I do want to kind of acknowledge, I know it was definitely challenging times for a few months, but your confidence in the levy and with the city, and also your willingness to approve the budget after it passed, after the levy passed, were critical in getting us to where we are at. So I truly thank you for your work over those difficult times. I also want to thank our community for passage of the levy. What it really gave us is the breathing room to stabilize our services, but also try new approaches, which is kind of exciting times. So after the levy passed, and over the past 5 months, this community has come together for a shared vision of safe, clean, and healthy Salem. And we are starting our pilot program for safety and livability soon, and Josh will cover those details in his presentation. But it has been a positive process for the council and the staff. We as a city are learning how to engage with our community, how to kind of engage different stakeholders. So it definitely has been a learning process too. What we are using that experience to create a framework so that we can use the same framework for the future initiatives. So it has been a learning process also. The other piece that what we are trying to do is we are trying something small scale so that before implementing a permanent solution, we want to be able to test, learn, and also building trust with the community on a proven model before we invest our precious resources into it, I think is important. So that also has been very helpful to the city. What I do want to cover, looking ahead, financial or the fiscal sustainability still remains as a top priority for us. But so does meeting the service demand for the community. So we just have to be able to kind of balance those two. As I do think it's important to discuss revenue options, but also before we get into the start kind of do the in-depth analysis on it, I do think that we need to focus on two things, which is the city has to continue to fine-tune our services and also clearly define what that revenue problem is. So those are the two things that have to happen. And when I say about fine-tuning services, what that means is we need to continue to be looking at cost savings, efficiencies, innovation, and reimagining services, because that is where we can kind of think about, is there a better way to provide the same services to the community in a different way? So over the next few months, the city will focus on that work. Now, when it comes to defining the revenue problem, I think it's important that we are complete in that process. By fine-tuning and analyzing these services, we can truly understand the service's true cost and also the performance. I know we had a lot of conversation about, even with the pilot program, how do we know the program works? So one piece that I do want to kind of add, as we are looking at any additional revenue, I think it's important that it has to come with improved services and in that process, the community engagement is very critical, and we are learning a lot about it. But that is, community engagement is essential in that process, and we can't kind of neglect that. So right now, as you're looking at, there are several initiatives that we are learning from. We have the operations levy. We're still kind of in the first few months of it. We have the paid parking, and then also the Safe, Clean, and Healthy pilot program. So within the next few months, we will know how these initiatives are working, where we need to make adjustments, and so that process continues. But also we are working on the levy performance audit program. And so those programs are important because we want to make sure that as we are providing services, are we providing it effectively, and are we, and as promised to the community. So we'll continue to do that. So one thing with every program that we are looking at, the piece that we have been consistent about, and I talked about the framework, what we have been consistent about is, do we know where we are at? We have to know, as a particular service, this is where we are at. This is what the community, we are engaging the community to understand what the need is, and then we're working with the council to give us direction about their vision, where they want to go. So there is a current state and there is a future state. There is a gap in between. And then we are providing a strategic action plan to the council and to the community to say, there is a way to go from the current state to the future state, but these are the steps that need to be done. So that's kind of what the model that you would see anytime we are working on these initiatives. So this is, it's kind of exciting time, but also what I want to be able to kind of bring this committee and to think about, this takes time because it requires a lot of organization energy and also efforts to build that trust with the community. So we are extremely excited to go through this journey with all of you, and I thank you again for your dedication, and I personally thank you, each of you, for your time commitment and serving this community and the city. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. We will now turn the floor over to CFO Eggleston. I believe you have some prepared comments for us this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. I have several slides for you this evening. I apologize, some of it's going to be repeat for City Council. Some of it is what you reviewed at your work session back in September, but there are a few updates and some additional information also. And just real quick, I want to go back to October 2024, which feels like a really long time ago, but it's just less than a year ago. Preliminary 5-year forecast, we forecasted a $17.7 million shortfall for fiscal year 2026. We formed the forecast review team. That 5-year financial forecast for the general fund was revised to $13.8 million. In that final document for January 15th, 2024. We updated that forecast when we delivered the budget for April 16th with a $2.14 million shortfall, which included significant reductions in services and staffing. And then, as the city manager mentioned, we brought the committee back together on May 28th, a revised 5-year forecast in the general fund with the community services programs, those livability services, pulled out of the general fund. So a much more positive outlook with a just over $5 million shortfall in the out years. And that's this chart here, just to bring everyone onto the same page. So council policy compliance there in the green. So within policy compliance through fiscal year 2028. So much more positive picture than we've seen for the last few years. But still, the structural deficit does remain. The primary funding source in the general fund is property taxes, which grow at just over 4%, and expenses often exceed that 4%. Forecast risks, I want to highlight. Forecast risk, you guys are very familiar with these, but just for the public and those listening, revenue, the forecast uses optimistic assumptions for revenue growth and savings. If those assumptions aren't met, the impact of the forecasts are significant. Benefits remain a significant risk. The public employee retirement system, PERS, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a little bit. Continue to be a significant expense for the city across all funds, not just the general fund. And then healthcare insurance premium rates appear to be coming in higher than forecast and continue to be a risk. And just a comment there, it's not unique to the city of Salem. It's not unique to public employers. We're seeing healthcare expenses high just about everywhere. We're self-insured, so we're looking at adjusting those rates. We're already in open enrollment, and we had an 18% increase of health insurance premiums as opposed to the 8 or 9 we were forecasting. And then just for compensation, we have 6 collective bargaining agreements, 4 of which were open for negotiations for fiscal year 2027. So just that presents a higher level of unknown going into this next year than we had the previous year. For PERS, so rates are known for next year. I mean, just to be really clear, and then we're estimating rates for the next biennium. The PERS board sets rates in a 2-year cycle. So what we're going to see in December 2025 is they're going to give us an advisory rate for that fiscal year 2028 and 2029. That's just based on investment earnings through December 2024. They operate about a year behind. So they'll give us the advisory rates December 2025 here in a couple months. We'll get the actual rates fall 2026, and then they're effective July 2027. I just want to highlight just that time discrepancy you see there, because there's a pretty extreme lag from when they're calculating what the rates are to when they're actually effective. And what that does is if earnings are much, much better, they're going to be under or overstated. If they're much, much worse, they're going to be understated. So it creates a pretty extreme rate lag. And then if you didn't know, the city does have a side account. So we have so back in 2005, the city joined with other municipalities and issued a pension obligation bond. And it's done really well for us. So since 2006, we've accumulated over $24 million in savings, the difference between that debt service amount. So we're paying annually for that pension obligation bond, and then we get a side account rate offset for our PERS rate. And that's highlighted there in that bottom table, that 5% we get off. So without that side account rate relief, we'd have a 5% higher PERS employer rate for this year than we would with that side account. And one reason we want to highlight this is because that side account is expiring. So December of 2027, both the debt service and then the side account rate relief are done. So it's fully amortized at that point. There's a couple unknowns. We don't know what the rate impact will be. There's some estimates, there's some thoughts with the actuary service with the PERS board, but until we get those advisory rates this December, there's still some unknowns. We were fairly conservative in the forecast, so this impact is already built in. We touched on it really briefly last year, but we are anticipating just some unknown. There's some risk there that the rate could come in higher. We're not the only municipality in this situation. There was a whole bunch of PERS employers in Oregon that issued around a similar time. So everyone's kind of experiencing this impact. So we'll be talking to other employers, we'll be talking to the PERS staff about how that's implemented, what the change might look like. And then on the top there, just a little of the mechanics of how it works. So it's a separate investment portfolio dedicated for the city, and then administrative expenses come out. An annual transferred amount comes out to offset that 5%, and then it doesn't have earnings. So the site account has delivered well since 2005 overall. So there's still some earnings. I'm hoping that there will still be a balance at the end of December 2027, and we could roll it into another site account, a smaller version, but we just don't know at this time. Here is a adjusted forecast. City Council saw this slide back in September, and the only change here, just to be really transparent, is just the impact of 2 urban renewal areas that are going to stop collections in 27 and 28. So just being transparent with that positive impact there, you can see the return, of 1.4 to 3.6 million to the general fund. So what that means is when we certify the taxes, we change the form we submit to the county. The URA areas technically are still open because there's still contractual obligations, debt service, but we're not collecting anymore. So the positive impact of those investments return to the tax rolls. So not just the city, but all taxing jurisdictions see the benefit there. Again, you see a positive within council fund balance policy through 2028, and just below council fund balance policy for fiscal year 2029. So still a positive picture here, but I'm going to highlight those risks we're experiencing. This doesn't include the increased health insurance premiums. This doesn't include other compensation changes. So when we come back to you in January with the final 5-year forecast, it'll incorporate all those various changes. I'm going to run through some service updates, and if it's okay, I'm just going to run through them, and then we'll pause and take some questions at the end of those. Some of this is review, some of it is some new information. So the first is paid on-street parking, implemented July 10th, 2025. So you have a partial month of July, full month of August, and a full month of September listed here. Positive experience so far, but again, we don't know the seasonality of what this represents, so I'm going to caveat the next slide quite a bit. So what I show here is a revised impact in the downtown parking fund for fiscal year 2026 with an estimated $175,000 per month of paid on-street parking receipts. And just to flip back here really quick, August and September both were over 200,000. So in full transparency, it could be a little conservative, but again, we don't know the seasonality, if it's going to drop here in the winter months, and we don't know the impact of, say, the legislative session for next year. And then for fiscal year 2027, there's a couple different things I'm forecasting here, and this is just in really broad numbers to give an idea of what might be available in the downtown area. So what this does is it removes the downtown parking tax for fiscal year 2027, assuming that council sunsets that. It includes the same parking rent we're experiencing, and then it has that same $175,000 for the paid on-street parking per month. In the lower section, the same security level that we're having right now in that current service, I did remove the bad debt expense that's associated with the parking tax. So if there's no parking tax, there's no bad debt expense. We did add parking meter maintenance support, additional sidewalk power washing, alley sweeping, and streetscape maintenance. So you can see the impact there between the revenues and expenses estimated for fiscal year 2027. And again, this is just an estimate. We'll have a lot better idea in the coming months. City Council is getting a full update in January, and you'll see a full forecast for the downtown parking fund also in January at the Budget Committee. For ambulance transport billing and the Emergency Medical Services Fund, this is our experience through September. You can see the transports for July, August, and September. The per day average, it's higher than we expected. but we are still meeting our performance goals for Marion and Polk County. And then you can see the July, August, and September total gross revenue, and then the total estimated combined cost. And a caveat here, it is really an estimated combined cost because there's a long tail for medical billing. So when you bill, it might be several months before you see the result, or longer in some cases. And then when we deem it, when we send it to collections, that's when we'd expense it as a bad debt expense. So that's why you see that estimate there, because we need a full year of experience before we understand fully what that means. Then you can see on that chart our payer mix, Medicare, Medicaid, third-party liability, insurance, patient, other government payers, and facility. The one positive thing here, and if you're interested, the fire department did a work session just on Monday that really highlighted some of this information, so feel free to go back and watch that. But the payer mix is coming in better than we expected. A little bit less for the Medicare, Medicaid, and a little bit more on the insurance side, which is better for our fund. For the Urban Renewal Agency, this highlights the general fund impact of that North Gateway and Mill Creek ending collections for fiscal year 27 and 28, and the potential revenue on an ongoing basis. I'm fairly comfortable with these estimates. This is a 2024 number, so these will likely be higher by the time we actually get to the years where they're closing. Opioid settlement funds. We've talked about this quite a bit at the budget committee level, but just wanted to highlight what we're using these for: substance use outreach and prevention program, first responder wellness programs, funding 2 homeless service team officers, a one-time grant for qualified mental health professionals at Salem Housing Authority, and then as well as Narcan and banking fees, administrative costs. Currently expecting to average around $900,000 per year until 2033. But I should note we've opted into more settlements since then. So for the manufacturers, we don't know what the outcome of those look like yet. So they're still in the settling phase, and there's municipalities and agencies opting in. So once they've settled all those pieces, we'll have a better idea of what those settlements might look like and what funding might be available. The city manager mentioned the Safe, Healthy, and Clean Salem pilot programs. Supplemental Budget 2 was passed on October 13th, which expanded the homeless service teams by 2 officers for the balance of the year. It expanded the SOS team to 7 days a week through overtime, increased disposal, and contracting expenses. And then beginning January 2026, a care team pilot, 2 seasonal positions, an EMT and paramedic, and the idea is that they would be combined with a Marion County qualified mental health professional as a co-response for a total cost of $626,200. This will be adjusted a little bit depending on when the programs start. And just for transparency, how we did that, we're expecting approximately $800,000 in additional beginning working capital coming from fiscal year 2025 into 2026. So the supplemental budget appropriated that $800,000 for the $626,200, and then we added a little bit to contingency in case council needs to access that additionally. For the budget committee, I think it's really important that this is a pilot program. The continuation of the program will be evaluated during the fiscal year 2027 budget process. Council is very clear about outcome measures and performance measures that we need to present on how effective those programs are. So we're planning to bring those back during the budget process. And then again, if not continued, the positions or services may be reduced. Another notable action on October 13th, the City Council reallocated $100,000 of the general fund transfer to the airport fund toward a minimum revenue guarantee to try to attract an additional airline. This funding makes a total commitment of $500,000 for 3 years, out of which $400,000 is from community partners. And those are dollars from the Salem Tourism Promotion Area, directed by the STPA committee, Marion County, the previous MRG rollover, as well as private donors. We received the property tax rolls from both Marion and Polk County. I'm pleased to report good news. The local option levy will come in as expected, at least at this point. There's always a little uncertainty. So one thing that happens, so we levied a 98 cents per thousand of assessed value. So what the county does is they take that rate and they translate it into actually what's being assessed. So that compression loss, local option levies get compressed first. So we were already experiencing some compression in the Marion County side, particularly. So we saw quite a bit of compression on the levy, but it was anticipated. As you can see, we came in really close between the estimate for the budget and the actual levies from the county, as well as the discount and delinquency. So when you pay your property taxes all at once, you get a 3% discount. That's what this piece represents, as well as just delinquency. So we expect some people are late on their property taxes. They get paid in later years. So at this time, we're still anticipating around that $14 million to be collected for the local option levy fund. I wouldn't count on that $60,000 there over, but we're well within the margin of my comfort level for what we expected. At their work session, the City Council reviewed potential priorities for funding. There was general agreement on the general fund shortfall, the deficit, addressing that, as well as the safety and livability. So some of these have already been implemented. The pilot program, that second one, community policing officers, has not been implemented. As well as we recognized the 5-year levy, it is temporary. Will expire in fiscal year 2031. So we want to recognize and keep that on the list that we will need to backfill or continue that levy, as well as the safety and livability bond operating costs of a potential future library branch, as well as Fire Station 12. And then the local transportation funding and commercial air service. I should note on the transportation services fund, we'll provide an update in January. But the transportation package that the state passed does include some additional funding for the city. We'll have better visibility on what that looks like when we present the forecast for the transportation services fund. But it's getting us a little bit closer toward that adequate category, if you remember your presentation from last January. And then potential new revenues recommended by the Revenue Task Force. City Council went through these. These three were ones that staff are recommending for more immediate implementation, including a franchise fee increase, a city operations fee restructure, and then the payment in lieu of taxes or a capital district. For the franchise fee increase, the city can consider increases to the solid waste, refuse disposal, garbage hauling, and as well as our own utility for water, wastewater, and stormwater franchise fees. I get asked occasionally about other things like cable and telephone, electricity, natural gas. Those are all at the maximum, so we can't increase those rates. As there's some estimates there for what the impact would be for the solid waste and the utility service. And then just to highlight, we've been talking about this for quite a while. The city operations fee restructure, as you all know, the utility billing system has been implemented. Your water bills look a little bit different, and it does give us some capabilities to perhaps modify the operations fee rate structure. And the identified issue is the commercial, industrial, institutional, and public rate is the same regardless of size or organization. So say a big box store is paying the same as a small drive-through coffee shop, which we see as a challenge. And then the city is continuing to advocate for a payment in lieu of taxes or a capital district. This lives with the city's legislative committee. It remains a high priority. And then other options recommended by the Revenue Task Force. These are things we're not recommending for implementation right now, but we want to make sure they were still recognized, is per potential special districts, an income tax or tax reform, and then a business license fee. And then next steps, I wanted to note a work session for the City Council's strategic plan update in November, and then your next budget committee meeting on January 14th. And one thing I'm hoping to leave this evening with is any additional information that you all would find helpful to receive at your meeting in January. So we'll deliver the 5-year forecast. We do that for every fund that houses employees, as well as a couple other funds that don't, but are notable. But if there's other information that you would find helpful, either should it be PERS, property taxes, other subjects that you'd like more information on, that's something that would be helpful to know now as we get closer to January. So with that, I'll turn it over to the committee for questions.
Thank you, CFO, for that instructive presentation. There's now time for the committee to discuss. Does anyone have any comments, general comments and or questions for Josh and or information requests for Josh? Member Dixon, why am I not surprised?
I detect a note of reservation in your voice.
No, please.
That's okay.
It should have been of encouragement.
I know me well enough to know that's okay. Just a couple of questions, Josh. Thank you for the information. The parking revenue, is that dedicated for downtown use only?
That is correct. So the downtown parking district is, the funding generated there is limited to the downtown parking district and services delivered within the district.
But it could offset general fund costs that are now coming from the general fund and going to the downtown, is that correct?
Potentially, I should note the security service that the general fund was paying for is already being picked up by the downtown parking fund. So that was the big $400,000 for 24/7 security. But there could be potential other services, yes.
Okay, and then for the airport, what is your projection for city costs, overall total city costs, not just the landing, whatever it is, the $100,000? If air service comes back, what would the combined city costs be to serve the airport, police, fire, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I'm not prepared to answer that this evening. A lot of it could depend on the airline and the frequency of flights. Some of that has a lot to do with the staffing and challenges there. So once we have more information there, we'll certainly bring it back to the Budget Committee and the City Council.
Okay. And then just the final question. Are the franchise fees that are mentioned in the slides, are they planned or are those possible? There's some franchise fee, I think, increases that are outlined in there.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So those are at the discretion of the City Council. They haven't made any policy changes. So unless that action took place, they remain at the same rate.
Thank you.
I think I saw another hand to my right. Did I not? Oh, well, there we go. Member Manville.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Josh. Clarification, which 4 labor agreements are open in 27?
Yeah, I believe it's PCA, or our 911 operators, our SPEW, or Salem Police Employees Union, and then the Sergeant Companion Union, it's a separate union, as well as IFF, or Firefighters Union.
Sorry. Yeah, so the majority of our general fund staff are covered by those, is that correct?
Yes, with police and fire, you'd have over the majority. If you look at the whole city, I equate like police and fire to be equal to AFSCME, or our general service union. But if you look in just the general fund, especially with the community services being pulled out, yes, it does represent the majority.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On the paid on-street parking, first a comment on downtown parking. I want to thank anyone who came and testified to council in favor of meters. More seriously, I want to thank the downtown businesses for advocating for that shift and the council for unanimously doing that. I know that that's a tough vote. Parking is something you hear a lot about as elected officials, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the financial stability it's provided and the opportunities for investment in downtown. Beyond that comment, I wanted to question, are the other revenues the tickets, or what are other revenues in this table on page 11?
Yeah, so the vast majority is other permits, so other parking structure permits. So citation revenue goes back into the general fund to help offset the cost of the enforcement, which also lives in the general fund.
Okay, just to clarify, so the paid on-street parking is the meters, and the other revenues is citations. Is that correct?
Not citations, it's permits. So
Okay.
like when you get a permit to park at Chemeketa, that would be in that category.
And then the citations would be in the previous category, the paid on-street parking?
The citations go to the general fund to offset the cost of enforcement, which lives in the general fund.
Thank you. So they're not in this chart at all?
They are not.
Do we have a sense of the citation revenue? Yes.
We do not. We don't have enough activity, and the adjudication process is lengthy. I know the volume is up. Parking services, the enforcement arm is fully staffed. So we don't have good data on that quite yet, but we should here in a few months.
Let's make that up for a bit. I have a couple more, but I see Councilor Nunn.
Well, I'm going to piggyback just because we keep talking about downtown parking. What I didn't hear, Josh, was discussion of the parking garage deferred maintenance.
Appreciate the question. That's something we'll bring back. So when we do the parking update or in the 5-year forecast, we're in conversations with our facilities division about what the deferred needs are there. In that current services line, that 1.9 million, there is some deferred maintenance being addressed, but we're getting more visibility on what the holistic need is for the parking structures.
Thank you. Member Nordyke, did you have some questions?
Sure. While we were on the subject of slide 11, I also had a question. You've identified parking meter maintenance / support, $240,000 per year. I'm just curious, what is that number, and how did we get to that?
So that's an estimate that the Urban Development Division put together. So there is a subscription fee, basically a fee for the parking meter equipment. And there's also occasional damage or replacement parts that are needed. So that's an estimate for that need, $240,000. So again, as we get more experience, we get a few years out, we'll have a better idea of what that looks like, and we'll adjust accordingly.
Member Nishioka.
Thank you. So again, page 11. We were wondering if you could give us a little bit more details on the current services that are just under 2 million. If you can kind of outline them because it sounds like staff are in another category, not this one. You've just explained that maintenance for the garages might be included, but just getting a better feel of what that is.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So if you're following along in the budget book for 2026, page 354, the expenditures are outlined there. So electricity costs, insurance, routine maintenance. So when the facilities division does maintenance in the parkades, that's charged there. Striping and meters, refuse disposal. So when they collect garbage and things like that downtown. Administration and board support, so some overhead there. The support service charge, so all city funds that aren't the general fund that use general fund resources pay a support service charge, or the ICAP, the indirect cost allocation plan. That's a significant portion, $645,000. It pays for the current downtown clean team, about $90,000, and then it does have that $400,000 for the parkade security services, as well as that bad debt write-off for fiscal year 26, but not 27.
Great, thank you very much for reading that. I jotted down the page number. I think some of the goals that we had for the parking meters were to see more sidewalk cleaning and things like that. So that's not in that list. It would be in a hopeful list later on.
Yeah, that is correct. So, one thing we're anticipating for that 27 is additional sidewalk power washing, the alley sweeping, and the streetscape maintenance. So those are listed there for fiscal year 2027. Again, those aren't final numbers, but those are just estimates that we have in the budget or in the projection right now. But as we get closer, the Urban Development Division will be putting together the final forecast and the budget for 27.
Again, thank you, and I'm really glad to hear that we're already moving from general funds, the security that's in the garages. That was a goal, so thank you.
Member Matthews, did you have your hand raised?
No. Oh. Councilor Nishioka, or Member Nishioka.
Okay, thank you. Okay, others? Vice Chair.
All right. For the next time we meet, I was wondering if you could provide, from the year 2000, the average salary increases and average COLA increases for employees, and then project out what those costs will be in 5 years and the impact on the budget. And I also want to say for on-street parking, I've used it several times. The hardest part is just remembering what your darn license plate is. So I really appreciate all that you guys have done for that. It's really been helpful. Something that
sorry to interrupt. Could I just ask you to clarify your first question?
Yeah.
The year 2000 or which year were you referencing?
2000.
Okay. So the average cost of living adjustment since 2000?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. And then it's not a question, it is a pontification, so if you will oblige me. This is mostly because we ran over it real quick, and it is something that shouldn't be run over real quick, and it has to deal with PERS. And I think this needs to be brought up to everybody's attention. I'm reading from an article by the Willamette Week author James Neff. And if people haven't been paying attention, the poor returns that Oregon has for its pension obligation bonds and pension funds could have been averted if Oregon just followed the advice of the investment firm that they paid $1 million to do, right? So what is the impact on this? In the article, it talked about school districts that are going to lay off staff members, counties that are going to have to lay off staff members, and I'm going to assume cities that are going to have to lay off staff members because of PERS. And so when we look in the future at our budget, and when we talk about revenue, some of this is going to have to be about telling our constituents that the reason why we're going to pay or ask for more in taxes is because the people in charge haven't done their job. So I wanted to read a couple items on here because I thought it was rather enlightening. Oregon has underperformed its private equity benchmark by a significant margin. This is from Richard Ennis, who's a leading expert on pension funding. They appear to be after the highest returning assets without respect to risk-return considerations. So, why is this important? If PERS had roughly matched the targets of its consultants, the Oregon Investment Council members had committed to stocks instead of private equity, the fund would have earned $1.4 billion in 2024. Instead, our Treasury Department has doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down on a failing strategy. Former Treasurer Reed, current Treasurer Steiner, doubled, tripled down on a failing strategy. And this is putting immense pressure on school districts, school boards, cities, counties, and the state. And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to what's going on in the state. Every single general funded agency has been given a reduction. And in our upcoming session, the Oregon Health Authority has to cough up $20 million. We're going to have to continue doing this as long as we have general funds that are going down and PERF funds that are going up. This is my pleading for the Statesman Journal, for the Salem Reporter, for other organizations to hold fire to our failing leaders and what they are doing to our cities, our school districts, our counties, because we are going to have to come back and tell them that we are going to have to raise your taxes to pay for stuff that our leadership is failing to do. Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? Member Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment in regards to what the Vice Chair just said. Your first question was asking the staff for the past 25 years, the COLA increases. Was that what that was?
Correct.
Another question? It'll be to the CFO. How long would that take?
I'm not sure. So there's certainly we have the last decade plus readily available. Past then, I'm not sure. I'd have to work with the Human Resources Department to see.
But so one more. But since we're talking about that here, and typically the council will have to give approval for anything longer than an hour. But is this body excused from council approval?
So we generally follow the same rule for the budget committee. There's no formal process. It's not quite like the city council policy. But generally we'd like to make sure there's concurrence, that there's a need for that information. Otherwise the city manager can direct that information be provided.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I'll follow up on that. I believe what you're saying is that if there's an anticipation that the information request be greater than an hour, that it would need to then come as a motion from the budget committee rather than a request from a budget committee member.
That is correct, yes.
And where do you think the last request falls? Should that, are you as the CFO looking at that come as a motion, or are you comfortable with the request as it stands?
I'd certainly be more comfortable with a motion if there's the will of the body for that information. Otherwise, I might have to come back and say, hey, I need a motion.
Mr. Chair, if I would 10 years, 15 years be easier for you? The entire point of this, right, budgeting is people and stuff. We all familiar with that? Budgeting is people and stuff. And as we've done lots of cutting of stuff, that leaves people. And what has been increasing, and I'm saying this as a former union employee, our salaries have been increasing crazy amounts. Our COLAs have been increasing historically higher than they've ever been before. That is putting upward pressure on all cities, counties, school districts, to the point where we are going to have to choose if we want to continue having COLA increases and salary increases or lay people off. We don't have to look far in the news. Portland State University did that. Salem School District did that a couple of years ago, and the school district came back and said, okay, well, we're going to lay off a bunch of people. So we're going to have to come to that decision at some point as well. And what I'm trying to do is find what that trend line is, and then we have to have the real conversation about how can we prevent that from happening by maybe getting tough on salary increases and COLA increases. Something that I will say most people are afraid to talk about, but I'm not. So if 10 years would be more sufficient, not requiring a motion, I'm just trying to get a trend line so I can understand how much they've been increasing.
I'm comfortable with 10 years.
And then also assuming, I believe you have this information, so it was a look back for 10 years. In your financial forecasts, I assume you have assumptions for labor increases, so you will include that in that report as well?
Yes, correct. And it'll be in the 5-year forecast document, as always.
Okay, thank you. Member Vang.
Thank you. CFO, I just, being new to the committee, I kind of wanted to bring it back to basic. COLA stands for cost of living, is that correct?
Yes, I apologize for the acronym, Cost of Living Adjustment.
Oh, okay. And so that takes into account like inflation and just like the cost of existence?
Yeah, so just a little bit about the process. So we operate with 6 collective bargaining agreements, as we've talked about. So when we go to bargain with those units, we go to council and executive session to get authority for the dollar amount that we're bargaining with. And generally what we do, and if HR was here, they'd be talking about our comparables and maintaining our market compensation. Because one challenge we see, especially in public safety for police and fire, is if we're not competitive, we lose members to other agencies that are less busy fairly quickly. So it's a fairly easy market to move from, especially in Salem where you have other agencies close by. And then just really quickly, so collective bargaining for those 6 units and then non-represented are set by the city manager and then approved by the budget committee and the city council.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Member Matthews.
So to kind of bring us back to the parking, just kind of retro. So I was looking through kind of the expenditures, and one thing I noticed is a pretty big increase in our liability insurance. So in 24 we were at 75,000, and then we jumped to 302,000 in 25. And so what causes that 4 times jump? And then is that kind of what we should expect moving forward?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. This could be its own little work session, right, on liability insurance. So we experienced in some pretty unprecedented, and I know we're tired of that word, but unprecedented property insurance premium increases. And it's not unique to Salem. It's not unique to our self-insurance fund. If you think about the downtown parking fund, it's property. So you're talking about large structures. So that property insurance simply went up. So the share of the property insurance increased. Also the increase in claims costs. So that combination, but the vast majority is increase in property insurance. And then as far as the future increases, we are still anticipating some challenges there, but it's looking better than it did a few years ago.
Member Teagan.
Thank you, and I recognize Member Varney, but just to quickly follow up on that, so folks have I think, a clear understanding. When we pay into liability insurance, I know this is probably its own work session as well, we're not paying a company, we're paying our own insurance fund, is that correct?
So somewhat both are true, actually. So we're self-insured. We assess rates to user funds and departments. They pay into the self-insurance risk fund, specifically the liability cost center. And then from there, we pay for property insurance and pay out claims. So it's a combination.
Thanks for clarifying.
Member Teagan, thank you for responding to Member Teagan. Oh, Councilor Varney.
Thank you very much. I had a couple of questions, and thank you for the presentation. No matter how many times we see it, even there's always just a lot of information, so I appreciate it. My question, first one is on the airport fund. I'm trying to remember how much of the general fund do we transfer to the airport fund every year? I was thinking it was about 700,000, but I couldn't remember.
You are correct. It's actually pegged to the 5 employees that were added for commercial air service. So it's ranged from 650 to, I think, by the end of the forecast, it's over that 700,000. But it's between 6 and 700,000.
Okay, and so there's a potential for that to increase as well, because the airport fund doesn't exactly support itself, right?
Again, that could be its own work session, I think, for the budget committee. It depends. I think right now we're extremely challenged. We're kind of in limbo because we are a federalized airport, but we don't have a commercial airline. So right now, it's certainly not self-sufficient. If we were able to generate enough commercial air service, it gets closer to self-sufficient. But at this time today, I don't have the visibility to say what that impact to that transfer would be if you're trying to do more than just pay for those employees, if you're trying to subsidize the airport additionally.
Sure. Okay, thank you. So as a request, maybe this is a request, maybe it's already done. When I look at the 5-year forecast, I was thinking about what's included in the total expenditures and the net expenditures, and I look at, they go up about $7 to $10 million per year. You know, it looks pretty steady overall. So my question is, do those estimates with the increases, does it include, do we forecast the cost of population growth, increased housing, the increased need to maintain more infrastructure, the increase in police for public safety? I mean, are those included in those calculations, or are those calculations just COLAs, inflation, kind of static expenses that we have right now? Not static, but whatever.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And, you know, the answer I give to this is it's status quo staffing. It's not status quo service level. So you're absolutely right. As the population and development increases, even over that 5-year period, the service level goes down slightly. But it is the same number of staffing in year 1 that is in year 5.
Okay, so you're not accounting for increases in staffing then to provide a similar service level, but to more infrastructure and a greater population, right?
That is correct. I think the closest we've gotten is a few years ago we did a deferred needs analysis where we looked at what you would need to add to each department in order to keep up with that approximately 1% population growth we see each year. But again, the forecast, even the one we presented today, shows a structural imbalance, and you're out of council policy after 4 years. If you add that layer on top, which I'm not saying we shouldn't, it makes that picture look even worse.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking about our need for more and more housing and the increased costs, and so I don't know if that's a request maybe to think about looking at that. Maybe. It's just something that I'm thinking about. Thank you.
Back to Member Manville.
All right, and if everyone, okay. Can you clarify for me, Josh, how the 3-year minimum revenue guarantee works for the airport fund? Is that contractual or something? Or we just allocated 100,000 and we're expected to allocate 100,000 the next 2 years?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And I'm not the expert in this area. I'll tell you what I understand, and then perhaps someone will correct me if I'm wrong. So the city has made a commitment of the $100,000. Community partners have come in with another $400,000. So now staff are working with our airport consultant to try to attract and negotiate with an airline. If they're successful, there would be a contract for that minimum revenue guarantee that would come back to City Council for approval. And at that time, that's when we would actually see those funds being used for that minimum revenue guarantee. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I believe so. The 300,000 isn't out the door yet, or it isn't in a special fund. It would be that's the oral suggestion to the people trying to bring an airport, and with the expectation that would be written in the contract eventually. Is that my understanding?
That is correct. The City Council has indicated a commitment to the 100,000, but we're not under contract for it at this time.
Do you have a follow-up to that, Councilor?
No, I just wanted to add a couple thoughts on how an MRG works, if that's helpful I'm not an aviation expert either, but I have attended a couple of these meetings. So an MRG is the concept that, you know, if an airplane flies a 100% full flight and they're making plenty of revenue, they're not going to draw down that MRG. The MRG is the fact that, well, we're going to start service in Salem tomorrow. We're going to fly in our first plane and see what happens. And if hardly anybody flies on it, then they're going to draw money out of that MRG to help make up the difference. So when Avello left Salem, they hadn't even drained the MRG because their flights were on average, what, 80% full, give or take, maybe even higher. I'm seeing a little, I have a friend who's whispering the answer to me over there. So they didn't even exhaust the MRG. The MRG is available if they need it. But if the flights are full, then they may not need it.
A follow-up, Member Manville?
I would change subjects, actually, if I may. Different question. So when you mentioned the operations fee, you kind of said it's out there as an idea. Like when I'm reading the news and that Amazon is gutting its workforce, replacing it with robots, 3/4 of its people, like, but Amazon's not paying the city very much, even though we put them in a URA and we're giving them all sorts of stuff. Like this huge union busting company is kind of came in, took our funds, and is now like going to replace all the workers with robots. I want to increase that sort of facilities operation fee. And I want to get a sense of, is there any timeline or is there any status of that? Or was the city manager just saying, hey, we're going to back burner that until we figure some stuff out? Or can you give me any sense of where that conversation is?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I think as the city manager mentioned, there's some things that she wants to accomplish prior to that community conversation, because it is a community conversation, especially with businesses if that's the area that we're looking at. So looking at our service level, looking at efficiencies, looking at cost savings, making sure we know what we're asking for when we try to make that adjustment. So there's certainly some pieces needed. Just on a really simple logistical side, one thing to note is that the rate adjustments generally happen on January 1st. So when you're looking at a rate cycle, we'd like to align those with when we adjust utility, stormwater, water and wastewater rates. Just to not create additional confusion for customers, we can include those notices with the rest of the notices. It's not an off-cycle increase. Ideally, certainly a possibility, but that does put a limitation on the timing.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Member Manville, and then we'll have Member Dixon.
Yeah, I guess in the same vein, was that also the subtext of the city manager's about when we're going to have increased library hours that we kind of campaigned for, and the voters kind of said, hey, let's expand library hours? Is it wait until we figure stuff out, or what's the schedule on that?
Yeah, the intent is to increase the library hours very soon, and I would defer to Director Bennett if she wants to speak to that more directly.
Hi, Acting Incapacity Community Services Director Gretchen Bennett. Stay tuned. We're really close to announcing a date and a time for when those hours will come up. We're after that as soon as possible.
My kids and I look forward to that. Thank you.
Awesome.
Member Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. CFO, in September, there was a staff report to the council that said the operations fee could take effect by January 27. Has anything changed that since that September report?
No, that's still accurate. It could take effect as soon as January 27 if there's that council policy action to actually put that change in place.
Do you have a sense, if our follow-up question, do you have a sense of when staff might bring a suggested policy change? And I'm asking this because the operations fee has been under consideration for, I think, around at least 2 years, and then a change to make it more efficient and fairer. And it seems like it keeps being pushed farther and farther into the future. So what is the timeline for the staff to bring a recommendation to the City Council?
If I may, we're actually looking for policy direction from City Council to direct staff to bring that back.
Member Dixon, did you have a recommendation for City Council?
Of course I do, Mr. Chairman. I recommend that the City Council ask staff to bring a recommendation for it. That seems really simple. Again, this is a concept that was put out there a couple of years ago, and I believe it needs to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Member Dixon. I was going to ask something along the same lines because we were waiting for the new billing system to be implemented. We have a new billing system. There were acknowledged issues with the rates that went in. These rates, as well as franchise fees, are regressive in nature, and the idea was to get a fairer, perhaps less regressive way to approach the operations fee. So I appreciate your comments. Member Brown.
I think Chair Fuller was before me, though.
I appreciate that, but I'll go ahead.
Okay,
I no longer have a question.
It's so hard to see you down there. I apologize.
I know. That's okay.
Thank you. Mr. CFO, so my question is in regards to page 6. You had mentioned earlier that the rates are going to come, I think, in December, some new rates. You also mentioned that this particular side account began in 2005 and will expire in 2027. What's the plan for you or the staff to bring back to us in January? What would that look like?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So what we're going to bring back is what the PERS board and the PERS staff are telling us. There isn't a question about the side account ending. That one will sunset. If there's an imbalance, staff will likely recommend that we roll that into, if there's a remaining balance, staff will recommend that we roll that into an additional side account. It's my intent to take that idea, that thought process to the Finance Committee for consideration. But as far as what else happens, we're already modeling the impact. What I'm hearing from PERS actuaries is that it might be a little bit worse than what we're modeling, but we're really not sure. So we'll find out in December with those advisory rates. We'll have a better idea at that point.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Except I think the last time they did advisory rates, they weren't all that accurate.
Yeah,
but it's the best we have.
It's the best we have, and I think the real challenge is it's using information from December of 24. You know, they use calendar year data, and our actual rates are going to be based on December 25 information. So it really does create that lag between the advisory and actual rates, because the investment earnings can swing wildly between those years.
I'm sorry, I was Member Geyer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. CFO, I apologize if I misheard you, but when you were talking about the health insurance premium rate increases, you typically look at it like about an 8% annual increase, but this year it might be 19%?
We're implementing an 18% rate increase for health insurance premiums. That's on our self-insured PPO plan. We were forecasting, I think, an 8.5% increase for the same time period.
And are you sure on those numbers? You said you kind of weren't. It was a little bit of a moving target. Well, can we get that information by January?
We're implementing an 18% increase for health insurance premiums. The open enrollment's open. People are already electing those health insurance rates.
Okay, thank you.
Member Matthews.
I had a question about the ambulance transport billing aspect. So part of when we were originally looking at the EMS part, it was a big portion of our profit was going to come potentially from inter-facility transfers. And so part of that was going to have a unit that kind of did inter-facility transfers. My understanding is that hasn't really started yet. And so do we have a projection on when we're going to start kind of doing the inter-facility transfers to capture that revenue?
Good evening, Dave Gerbeau, Fire Chief. I don't think IFT inter-facility transfer is necessarily a large part of what we were expecting, but it's certainly a part. Since excuse me. Since July 1st, we've done 172 interfacility transfers with about a $400,000 gross revenue. So we're looking at that. Certainly, we want to make sure that we're answering the 911 calls first. And so if every interfacility transport, generally we're going to Portland, that takes an ambulance out of service about 3 hours. And so we're managing, we're only a little over 3 months into it right now. So we're looking at January, hopefully we'll have a good account of revenue. So right now we are balancing to make sure we hit our 90% compliance. We're answering our 911 calls. And if we feel that we cannot take an interfacility transport and do that, we're on a rotation with our other partner agencies. But we do get first right of refusal on interfacility transport. So we're sort of looking at that and evaluating it come first of the year.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So the interfacility transfers we're doing right now are pre-planned interfacility transfers. They're not ones that were 911. The hospital's calling 911 that we need to take this person up as a 911 interfacility transfer. These are ones that are actually, we're pre-scheduling and taking them up as part of our package that way.
Out of the 172, I think we're about 50-50 between pre-planned and we emergent 911 calls.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Member Vieira Brandel.
So proud of you. Oh.
I've been practicing.
Have you been practicing all summer? Is that a question? And actually, this might go back to the fire chief. Just out of curiosity, what are the outcome measures for the care team, the pilot project?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for the question. So the focus areas for the care team pilot for outcome measures and for the metrics, one is going to be, are we able to look at alternative destinations? We know that many of the people that we serve that are in a mental health crisis or having substance use or abuse do not need to go to the emergency room, and actually it's a detriment. But right now, it's the only place we have. We're having conversations with several other providers about having an alternative destination so that we can get people the right help at the right time in the right place. So one of his alternative destination. The second is on the responding to calls of mental illness, substance use and abuse that the care team can respond to that relieves the responsibility of a first responder, so we don't have to send an engine company or a ladder truck to that call and keep them available for other incidents. Also is when we're not on an emergency is engaging with our highest utilizers of 911. Can we work those down by connecting with services in a time when they're not in crisis, and then watch the number of 911 calls that they have in the system actually decrease, and then get them out of the 911 system. And then we're going to keep metrics of our contacts as well as how many people we get into specific services. Thank you.
Member Nordyke.
And after that, Member Fuller.
I did look down there.
Always. The operations fee, yes, I'm well aware of the delays, and I understand why they are. I want to float an idea, a crazy idea that I brought up, I think, in a finance committee meeting quite some time ago. But in lieu of this capital district, which we've just never been able to get, and Lord, I know we would like to have a capital district very much, right? Very much. Hasn't happened yet. And I fully support legislative committee going and doing it yet again and again and again. Every year we go to the legislature and ask them to pay for their share of public safety services, because it's substantial. And we've even had a member of council, our council president has suggested that perhaps we should start sending them invoices just so they know exactly how expensive it is to have the privilege of being the state's capital, right? And the special perks, if you will, that come from playing a home court to the legislature, state government, and the exercise of First Amendment rights outside the Capitol, which happen regularly these days, it seems. So I was thinking, for the operations fee, is there anything stopping us from adding a little surcharge in there for the gigantic state buildings that, and we could call it whatever we wish. I'm sure the city attorney might have ideas for what we could call it, but those gigantic state buildings consume a lot of energy and a lot of space. And I don't, whether they are completely at capacity, and many of them are not, because a lot of state workers now work remotely, they still have to fully heat them and cool them day in and day out. So I don't understand why we couldn't, as an operations fee, just add a little surcharge for the state government buildings downtown, because then it would just be an operational expense for those state buildings, which goes towards their state budget. Like, I used to work in the DOJ, one of the DOJ buildings. There's 3 of them on the Capitol Mall, or at least there used to be 3. I think it's down to 2. But a lot of those people in those buildings did not work in the city of Salem. They did not live in the city of Salem. And so to me, that just seems like an opportunity for us to make up for an area where we may not get the public safety district that we have long aspired to, because now it's a part of their operational budget, and that's just something that can be absorbed into their overall budget when those state agencies go to the legislature, make their ass like, oh, it's a little extra this year. So anyway, I would like to know if that is at least an option for potentially indirectly having them pay for their fair share, because operations fee goes to general fund. That can go to pay for the police officers, the firefighters, all of those who currently respond to those buildings in the downtown core and the capital area. So I don't expect an answer on this tonight, but I would like the city staff to think creatively about this. And there's nothing stopping us from applying that same sort of special surcharge to Amazon, for example. I don't see why not. So I would just like to know if that is a valid option, because my constituents want me very much so to find revenue wherever I can. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's certainly something we'll take under consideration. I'm not sure at this time. I think you'd want some legal basis to differentiate that service from other services. Certainly we've looked at the size of building perhaps, but that wouldn't delineate specifically that, call it building classification, but it's certainly something we can look at.
Member Fuller, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back to a topic we've already talked about, and that's the library. And I'm sorry, Gretchen, you look so comfortable back there, but I just have some more questions about the time frame, because all of us in this room, I think, and many of us in the community worked really hard to campaign for those services to be increased, and we were successful, but the services haven't increased yet. We haven't seen increased hours. So you said you're close. If you don't know, you don't know, that's fine, but people have been asking me, and I would like to give them an answer as to what is happening that's causing the delay. Can you shed some light on that?
Of course.
Thank you.
And thank you. And I need to begin and end also with a thank you to you and others who worked so hard on all of the efforts to help raise awareness and support for this community services. So specifically to the library, my hesitation is just, I don't want to share a date and then be wrong and disappoint everybody. So that's where my hesitation is, but we're very close. The elements that go into it, you know, you need to recruit all of the staff, you need to train all of the staff, you need to examine all of the input that's been coming in to help us understand what people are looking for in terms of days of the week and evenings. And we just had a really robust community survey with over 1,000 people responding, and we wanted to make sure to analyze that information. We also need to work with all of the teams on an approach to how to structure who would work when and lay all of those pieces in place. So that would be kind of a general description of the elements that go into it. But we're really close. And when I say close, I don't mean 6 months from now. So we're narrowing in.
Thank you.
Of course. And thank you for all of your help.
Member Nishioka.
Thank you. And Gretchen, I think that you might want to share that when we finally get there.
There will be a party, and private contributors are donating cake.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Member Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. CFO, I have maybe two questions, and they're going to come from page 11 and also page 20. The first one is in regards to solid waste cost. And Mr. Zink may have to answer this, I'm not sure. But the first one on page 11, and I know you said we still got to give this some time to work out like a whole year when it comes to our Beep Beep Salem. But those amounts from the sidewalk to the alley sweeping just to the maintenance, those particular numbers, that's our staff and not contracts, correct?
Appreciate the question. It could be a combination. I don't think that's been determined at this point, whether we would augment like the current downtown clean team versus having our own facility staff do some of the work. So I don't think we've determined quite what that looks like. These are just the general categories that we're looking at for those programs.
And you believe that we'll probably have some information in January about that, or maybe a whole year in cycle?
The soonest would be January, likely at least by March.
Okay. And follow up, Mr. Chair. So on to page 20. In regards to the fee increase, you had mentioned that natural gas, electricity, and I think cable, we've already maxed those out with the highest level. So when it comes to the solid waste, and it looks like we're adding, what, 50 cents more per month?
Yeah, appreciate the question. So we have statutory limitations on the other franchise fees. For solid waste and utility service, those rates and those franchise fees are managed by the city council. So that's why there's no cap. The 1% increase is just for illustrative purposes. City council could implement a 2% increase.
Got it. Is it possible in January to come back and share with us how much we are spending when it comes to taking care of a lot of our unsheltered encampments? Is that a possibility?
Certainly. Yeah, we could bring back some clarity there for the SOS team and other groups that are doing that work.
The only reason I ask is for the committee. The only reason I ask is because that particular number and what we're spending to take care of our folks that are, that are houseless, that number is increasing. And so I just want us to know exactly what does it look like or feel like or sound like when it comes to the cost that the city is paying for when it comes to cleaning up or keeping Salem clean, because that's one of our top initiatives, safe, clean, and being healthy. And right behind that, we also know that the state is also paying their share. I don't know how much, but they're paying it. Thank you.
Member Manville.
Thank you. Josh, at the State of the Downtown event put on by Main Street and some partners, Chief Womack mentioned that vacancies in the police department, vacancy savings were being used for overtime, and that was something new that hadn't happened for many years. Is that my understanding?
That is correct. They've increased patrols in downtown and northeast Salem using overtime.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. And when I heard that, it was hard for me, in part because as you've held our hands and taught us about how the budgeting around vacancies work, is that we build in those vacancy savings, and that's part of how the budget works. And so I kind of was surprised that those vacancy savings were then turned around into paying more for overtime, and that's something that the mayor's city efficiency committee had highlighted as like, hey, we need to rein in our overtime costs specifically and look for ways to reduce that. So I certainly appreciate the services of the police department and all that, but I just wanted to share that I was kind of taken aback that had happened, because I kind of had understood the staff saying things worked a certain way, and I'd heard that we'd had a lot of community input on reining overtime in. So I just wanted to share that was kind of surprising, and I don't know if you want to provide any more information or data on that, but that was my initial reaction.
Yeah, I appreciate the comment. I don't think I have a direct answer. It is rather unusual that we would target overtime, but it was an identified need that City Council saw at the time, which is why we saw that patrols added and using overtime was the most expedient way to do that. I could point to other examples where the City Council's authorized some pretty significant overtime in order to start services. Both times when we reopened the fire stations back in 2017 and 2019, they were reopened using overtime because it's the most expedient way to get that staffing going. So when there is an identified priority, identified community need, overtime is often turned to as the most expedient way to address it quickly.
Member Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two requests, and they're not necessarily for the CFO. These are for information that I would hope could come back to us perhaps in January or even before. First of all, I'm glad to hear that we will get a report on the transportation fund and possibly ways that the city is going to be increasing service in that area. And I do hope that will address preventive maintenance along with the other needs in there. In that vein, a staff report has indicated that the city would need to spend $2.8 billion to replace the aging and failing steel water pipes under the city. And I would hope that perhaps by January there could be some indication of what the city is planning to do or starting to plan to do to deal with that issue, which seems like a huge issue to me. And then the second thing that I would hope we would have by January would be some clarification on communication among members. What I am hearing and reading indicates that there's pretty much a prohibition on talking to any other member of a committee you belong to, which sounds like a gag order to me. But I would like to have clear guidance and perhaps a chance to discuss it to get clarification on that. I so far do not agree with what I'm hearing. And I need to have clarification on that.
If I may, I think Member Dixon's referencing recent Oregon Government Ethics Commission information. We'll certainly send out the latest guidance we have regarding that. We also recommend, and you're actually required as public officials, one time during your term to attend a public meeting training put on by the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, but we can certainly bring back some information.
Member Tigan.
Thanks, Member Dixon. Always appreciate your comments, and I would just say if you took your required training, say like last year, it's a great time to re-up that training. And to a point you made while you were visiting us as a counselor, or sitting in a visiting council position, the restraint on speech by committee members, which is what these rules are, there's a balance there, and I sense your frustration with the balance that the Oregon law has struck, restraining the free speech of elected officials or appointed folks like yourself to committees. The balance is that as a community we want things done in public. I think you're talking to a body of people that are actively engaged in that discussion or the struggle to understand what the balance is. So I just always appreciate your clear thinking about it. And so thank you for bringing it up today as well. I do want to just share my thinking about the operations fee because it is something that I personally carry as a priority for my time on city council. And I also think I'm also learning along with the community about how we identify needs that the community are bringing to council and to city government, and how we match new resources to meet those needs. So when we think about the operations fee, I think one question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want to just rebalance it for the sake of fairness among the payers? So it's essentially like a revenue neutral solution where commercial entities and folks like Amazon pay a lot more, and people who live in apartments and own coffee shops pay a lot less. Or do we want to look at page 18 of our presentation tonight? Give everyone a second to page to it. Those are the potential priorities for funding. These are the things that have been either identified by the senior leadership of our city government, or things that have been brought to us as a council and a budget committee that we need more money than we have to spend on. And importantly, two of the things that we heard on Monday from the fire department aren't on this sheet either, which is fully staffing our ladder trucks and a training position for our fire system. Those were brought to us on Monday as well. So when we think about what happens next with the operations fee, and I'm with you, I want more of that sooner as a council member, I think we need also to have a conversation about all of the stuff on this page, knowing that an adjusted operations fee isn't going to get us all of these things. And so which one of them are most important, and which are the ones that we could put into service starting the January 1st, 2026, 2027, sorry. Yeah. So that may not be the future library branch, it may not be Fire Station 12. Those things might need a different revenue solution than the operations fee. But some of the other things that we're talking about here tonight and that have been put forward to us by our city leadership are things I think we need numbers for. We need to know how much 8 community policing officers are going to cost. And we need to know if we have a great care team co-response model, what's that going to cost? Because that's going to go into our decision for what do we want out of the operations fee? Do we want it to be flat? Do we want $10 million? Like, I don't know. We don't have any of those numbers in front of us. So I think this is our only time to talk about it. We're not doing phone calls in the back room. So that's my thinking about this is I think page 18 needs to be a lot more detailed, Josh, in terms of what are these different policy options could potentially cost us. And then we can go to the operations fee and say, yes, community, this is why we're going after X amount of dollars increase.
Josh, I'm going to jump in here. I want to piggyback just a little bit on the information request that the Vice Chair asked for earlier. If we're going to go down the path of looking at personnel costs, they are obviously not the whole budget, but huge portion of the budget. The things that I'm asking for, I'm only asking for if they are readily available to be included on the report. For whatever years you're looking at, it would be nice to also know the PERS increase that the city incurred that year, the health insurance increase that the city incurred that year, whether or not the employee contribution to health insurance increased at all that year, and then what was the growth in non-staff areas for that year?
Yeah, I appreciate the questions. All of those are readily available. Can you expand a little bit on the last point?
The non-staff?
So just material and services
Yes.
cost increases?
Yes.
Okay.
I say that because a lot of public agencies are seeing that their budgets are being spent a lot more. The slice of the pie for personnel costs is increasing, and the slice of the pie for non-staff is decreasing by its very nature. However, in order to have a functional organization, you have to have both people and things. And public agencies for the last several years have been neglecting things. And this isn't a street maintenance necessarily question, it's just our point. It's just that they've been prioritizing people over things, but at some point, the people can't do their jobs without things. So again, I'm not looking for a big work on that, but you could probably define staff versus non-staff, and you can do a % increase of what the non-staff was those years. If it doesn't make sense, then I withdraw that portion of the request.
No, happy to provide it. I think we'd be somewhat limited how we categorize the materials and services increases. And would you like to limit it all by fund, or are you looking for citywide?
I think we're looking at citywide here, but again, I'm going to defer to you because you have streets and you have wastewater that are huge expenses when you do a project. So I'm going to defer to you. We're looking at materials and services, but in a way that makes sense so that we can see what that growth has been over the years. I think what we're going to see is that personnel costs are outpacing non-staff increases.
Yeah. If I may, how about all funds excluding construction? We'll break it out by fund type.
Sure. Okay. Whatever makes the most sense to you. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Member Fuller.
I feel silly asking this as a budget committee member because I feel like it should be off the top of my head, but I haven't been here long. So do you know what the percentage of the city's budget goes to pay staff? What's our people cost?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So for the general fund, it's about 80%. If you go citywide, it's a little bit less because you get other infrastructure pieces in there. But if you're focusing on the general fund, it's 80%.
Vice Chair Cohen.
Thank you. I'm sure the answer is no because it's pending litigation, but I haven't seen in the news anything recently about the lawsuit against the former ambulance company. I was wondering if we can get an update on that. The reason why is you can reassure me if I shouldn't feel nervous. I feel nervous because I don't want them to countersue us and then have that blow up our other funds.
Yeah, I don't think we have anything we can share at this time.
All right, I believe I've heard from everyone this evening except Member Belichick's. Do you have, I want to make sure that you have airtime if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chair Allen. Thanks for calling on me. No questions.
Okay, thank you. Member Gwynn?
I don't have any questions, but I do want to thank you, Josh, for your presentation, and looking forward to moving forward. So,
are there any other questions, comments, or requests? Oh, no. Member Vieira Brandel.
Quick question. Of the items that you've been asked to look back at, the COLA increases, health premium increases, those things, how much of that is negotiated when the bargaining agreements open up again?
Yeah, so the vast majority is negotiated with collective bargaining. It might differ a little bit by negotiation cycle, but anything affecting work can be negotiated.
Member Mandel.
Mr. CFO, would it be possible to also include overall inflation in those charts? Like when I think about money over time, I try to inflation adjust it. That's just helpful for my mind. But if you can just have a chart of like each year's inflation, so I'm not asking you to do more than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Member Brown, inflation caused you to?
No. It goes back to the work they have to do because I think you're still waiting for a motion, correct?
No, we're okay without a motion.
Oh, we're good?
Because he
Yeah, the information request was reduced information that they readily have on.
You know, I fell asleep for like 30 seconds. I think I missed it.
And he can readily obtain CPI for each year. So again, I don't think anything is added to stuff that they don't already have. Any final requests, thoughts, comments?
So I'm going to go back to Member Dixon's comment and I move that this budget committee ask the councilors to come forward with information on the operations fee sooner than was projected. Is that open-ended?
If that's a motion we can make, I'll second.
Before we go further, does staff understand the motion?
Thank you.
So if I can summarize, I think the Budget Committee is recommending that City Council move forward and work with staff on a proposal for the city operations fee restructure.
Much better said than me. Thank you.
That was a friendly amendment. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that by Member Nishioka. It was seconded by Member Hoy. And I'm not going to repeat it. Josh just repeated what the motion is on the table. Is there any conversation on or questions with regards to the motion? Member Geyer.
Yeah, is this just to have a discussion or is this to actually have a vote on it?
We're making a motion here as a budget committee to move it forward to council. So then the staff can prepare how they need that motion to council to move forward.
Okay, yeah, got it.
Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. So the Budget Committee is advisory to City Council, this side of the room. So this is just a recommendation to the City Council from the Budget Committee to direct staff to come back with a proposal on the restructure.
All right, if there's no further, I'm sorry, Member Hoy.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for showing up tonight and for bringing really great questions and thoughts. I think we've got a pretty wonderful group that Salem needs right now, just at this time. So thank you, Josh and staff, for bringing everything forward, and I'm looking forward to this process with you.
All right, we do need a vote on the motion. So all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right. Again, I thank everyone for their, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I had a question brewing as a follow-up to my other question to Josh, and I hadn't quite formed it yet. If we're going to be discussing items that are typically negotiated between labor and management, is it possible to ask labor representatives to come to provide us some additional context to the trends that we've seen and things like COLAs and healthcare costs?
If I may, we'll take that back as a city management team and discuss it with collective bargaining.
Okay. I would like to thank the committee for their work this evening. I would also like to ask if there's any other public testimony that is requested for this evening that has not yet been heard. I do not see any. Before we close, I will make a note that the last time I was in this venue was 26 years ago for a budget committee meeting, sitting in the audience, and I don't think the room has changed at all since then. So again, thank you, everyone. The next, I'm supposed to just remind you that the next Budget Committee meeting is on Wednesday, January 14th, 2026, to hear results of the FY 2027, FY 2031 5-year financial forecast. The meeting will take place here and begin at 6 p.m. We heard from her earlier. Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. The meeting is adjourned.